My beloved child, before you move past this moment, listen carefully, because there are words meant for you that were never supposed to arrive in ordinary ways. There is something in your spirit that has been restless lately, something beneath your smile that no one around you fully understands. You have been carrying questions in silence, wondering why certain doors closed without explanation, why some people changed without warning, why your heart kept sensing that life was shifting even when nothing around you looked different. And what you must understand now is this: your spirit was noticing what your eyes could not yet see. The change began before the evidence appeared. The movement started before the breakthrough became visible. And that is why you feel this strange tension between exhaustion and expectation, because part of you knows something is near, even if you cannot name it yet. There is a reason your path has felt unusually quiet. A reason certain plans stalled. A reason some conversations faded. You thought perhaps you were being delayed, but what if you were being positioned? What if the silence around you was not emptiness at all, but preparation? Stay here for a moment and let that settle in. Because many people mistake divine preparation for abandonment. They assume that when life becomes still, nothing is happening. But some of the greatest shifts begin in seasons where everything appears motionless on the surface. Beneath still water, currents are moving. Beneath dark soil, roots are spreading. Beneath your ordinary days, something extraordinary has been aligning in ways you cannot yet measure. And here is the secret you were meant to hear tonight: what is being prepared for you cannot arrive in the version of you that existed before this season. That is why the waiting has felt so personal. It was never just about timing. It was about transformation. You were being strengthened in private so you could carry what is coming in public. You were being refined where no one applauded. You were being matured where no one noticed. The tears no one saw mattered. The prayers whispered when your voice shook mattered. The moments you almost gave up but chose to keep going anyway mattered more than you realize. Pause and think about how many times you survived what should have broken you. How many nights you lay awake trying to understand why your heart felt heavy while everyone expected you to keep pretending you were fine. How many times you gave your best and still felt overlooked. Yet somehow, you remained. Not unchanged, no, you have changed deeply, but you remained. Stronger in ways even you have not fully recognized. Wiser in ways pain forced you to become. Softer in some places, sharper in others, but still here. Still standing. Still becoming. And what if I told you the very things that made you question your journey were shaping the exact qualities needed for your next chapter? The disappointment taught discernment. The delay taught patience. The heartbreak taught depth. The betrayal taught boundaries. The confusion taught trust beyond appearances. Nothing was wasted. Not one tear. Not one detour. Not one lonely night. Even the chapters you wanted erased were somehow woven into the making of who you are becoming. But there is more, because this message is not only about what has happened. It is about what is beginning. Something important is waiting for you just beyond this season of uncertainty. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because clarity is beginning to rise where confusion once stood. You are about to notice things differently. The patterns you ignored before will become obvious. The people who drain your spirit will become easier to recognize. The opportunities meant for you will feel less forced. What once required chasing will begin to approach you with peace instead of pressure. And when that happens, do not mistake peace for coincidence. Peace is often the sign that what is arriving belongs in your life. There is a blessing hidden in what did not work out. Read that again in your heart. Because some endings were protection. Some disappointments were redirection. Some unanswered prayers were mercy wearing unfamiliar clothes. You mourned things that would have damaged your future had they remained. You cried over closed doors that were never meant to open wider. And though you could not understand it then, one day you will look back at what left your life and whisper gratitude instead of grief. But here is what most people do not realize when they stand on the edge of transformation: they often feel the most uncertain right before life changes. They assume the discomfort means they are lost. Yet sometimes discomfort is simply the old version of your life no longer fitting the person you are becoming. That restless feeling inside you, that strange inability to settle for what once satisfied you, that deep knowing that your current reality cannot be the whole story, it is not random. It is the sound of your spirit outgrowing old limits. Do not ignore that feeling. Because there are moments in life when your soul senses movement before your circumstances confirm it. When something inside keeps whispering, prepare, even if you cannot explain why. Have you felt that lately? A pull toward change? A quiet urge to let go of what no longer aligns? A sense that the life you have known is somehow too small for what is ahead? That is not your imagination. That is awareness awakening. And yet, before what is coming can fully arrive, something must be released. There are attachments you have outgrown. Expectations you must surrender. Versions of yourself built only to survive, that can no longer lead you where you are going. Listen carefully here: sometimes the next chapter does not begin with gaining more. Sometimes it begins with letting go. Letting go of needing everyone to understand you. Letting go of chasing validation from those who were never assigned to affirm your worth. Letting go of shrinking yourself to remain accepted in spaces you have spiritually outgrown. Letting go of the fear that your best days are behind you. They are not behind you. They are waiting on the other side of your willingness to trust the process unfolding. And yes, I know trust has been difficult. Because you have hoped before. Believed before. Expected before. Only to watch things fall apart. That history made your heart cautious. It taught you to protect yourself. To expect less so disappointment hurts less. But hear this clearly: guarding your heart from disappointment can also guard it from possibility. There comes a moment when healing asks you not just to survive, but to open again. To believe again. To expect goodness again, not because the world is perfect, but because your story is not finished. Don't skip this part, because many walk away from their breakthrough simply because it arrived in unfamiliar wrapping. They expect answers to look dramatic, immediate, unmistakable. But often the most life-changing moments begin quietly. A conversation that shifts your perspective. A door opening where you least expected. A sudden peace replacing old anxiety. A desire to move differently. A relationship becoming clearer. A burden lifting for reasons you cannot explain. Transformation rarely announces itself with noise. Sometimes it whispers before it roars. And your whisper has already begun. That subtle stirring in your chest when you think about your future. That unexplainable pull toward becoming more. That refusal inside you to settle for half-lived days. That ache for deeper purpose, deeper peace, deeper alignment. Those are not random feelings. They are signs. Something within you is being called higher. Not higher in status. Not higher in appearance. Higher in awareness. Higher in discernment. Higher in self-respect. Higher in peace. Higher in purpose. The next version of your life will require a next version of your mindset. Which means the thoughts that once kept you safe may no longer keep you growing. The fears that once protected you may now be limiting you. The habits that comforted you may be quietly delaying you. This is the season to become honest with yourself. To ask difficult questions. To stop pretending you do not know what must change. Because deep down, you know. You know what drains your energy. You know what keeps distracting you. You know what patterns return every time you abandon your inner knowing. You know which environments shrink your spirit. You know which voices create confusion instead of peace. And if you are honest, you have known for longer than you admit. But grace has allowed you time. Time to awaken. Time to recognize. Time to choose differently. And now that time is here. The secret I was told to keep is that the chapter approaching your life will not resemble the ones behind you. It will stretch you, surprise you, heal parts of you you thought would always ache. It will reveal strength you did not know you possessed. It will place you in rooms you once felt unworthy to enter. It will bring alignment where there was once chaos. But only if you do not retreat into old fear when the new begins to unfold. Because the truth is, many pray for change but panic when change actually arrives. When life starts shifting, they cling to what is familiar. When new doors appear, they hesitate because uncertainty feels dangerous. When old chapters close, they mourn what was instead of preparing for what comes next. Do not make that mistake. When the signs appear. When peace begins replacing pressure. When clarity interrupts confusion. When what once felt impossible starts becoming reachable. Receive it. Not with fear. Not with suspicion. Not with the belief that good things always disappear. Receive it with gratitude. Receive it with maturity. Receive it with the quiet confidence of someone who survived enough to know blessings can arrive after battles. Because yours can. And yours will. But the final part of this message, the part many overlook, is that what is coming is not only meant to bless you. It is meant to change you. The life ahead is not just about receiving more, it is about becoming more. Becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves for approval. Someone who trusts peace more than chaos. Someone who walks away from what dishonors their spirit. Someone who chooses alignment over attachment. Someone who understands that delay was never denial, only preparation. So if you have been asking for a sign, if you have been waiting for confirmation, if you have been wondering whether the stirring inside you means anything at all, let this be the answer: yes. Something is shifting. Yes. Your season is changing. Yes. What you felt in your spirit was real. And this is only the beginning. Because what comes next will explain why everything had to unfold exactly as it did. There are moments, my beloved child, when the truth of your future begins to press against the walls of your present, and that pressure is what you have been feeling. It is why ordinary things no longer satisfy you the way they once did. It is why certain conversations leave you strangely empty, why old routines feel heavier than before, why your spirit keeps searching for something it cannot yet fully describe. You are not losing interest in life, you are outgrowing the version of it that no longer matches who you are becoming. And that realization can feel unsettling before it feels liberating. Because growth often begins as discomfort before it becomes clarity. You may have wondered why your heart has become more sensitive lately. Why certain energies disturb you faster. Why your patience for shallow connections has faded. Why your tolerance for pretending has weakened. It is because awareness changes what you can live with. Once your spirit recognizes what is misaligned, it becomes harder to keep calling it normal. What you once tolerated casually now feels heavy. What you once excused now feels obvious. What you once chased now no longer seems worth your peace. This is not bitterness. This is discernment being born. And with discernment comes distance. Some people will not understand the version of you that is emerging. They were comfortable with the version of you that stayed quiet, overgave, overlooked your own needs, accepted less than you deserved, and made yourself smaller so others could remain comfortable. But the moment you begin honoring your peace, everything changes. Suddenly, the same people who benefited from your silence may call you distant. The same people who took your loyalty for granted may call you changed. And perhaps you have changed. Perhaps pain taught you what peace requires. Perhaps heartbreak taught you what boundaries must exist. Perhaps disappointment taught you to stop confusing availability with alignment. Stay with this thought, because it matters more than you know. Not everyone assigned to your past is meant for your future. Some people were chapters. Some were lessons. Some were mirrors. Some were warnings disguised as comfort. And your growth requires the courage to stop romanticizing what was only temporary. There are things you loved that were never built to last. There are connections you mourned that were never designed to remain. There are dreams you had that were too small for what is now being prepared. You thought losing certain things meant life was taking from you, but what if life was making room? What if what left had to leave so what belongs could finally arrive without obstruction? Many people ask for blessings while their hands remain full of what no longer serves them. But you cannot fully receive what is next while clinging to what is over. That is why release feels sacred in this season. Not easy, but sacred. Because every release teaches trust. Every goodbye creates space. Every ending opens territory for a beginning you could not access before. And yes, I know there were moments you begged for people to stay. Moments you replayed conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. Moments you blamed yourself for not being enough, not being chosen, not being understood. But hear this clearly now, some departures had nothing to do with your worth. Some people left because they could not meet the depth within you. Some walked away because your growth exposed their stagnation. Some distanced themselves because your presence demanded honesty they were not ready to live in. Do not reduce your value to fit someone else's inability to recognize it. The right things do not require you to betray yourself to keep them. And what is aligned with your future will not ask you to become less in order to receive it. Something important is waiting for you, but before it arrives, your perspective must fully shift. Because if you still see yourself through the lens of your past pain, you may sabotage what is trying to bless you. If you still believe disappointment is your destiny, you may distrust the very peace you prayed for. If you still think every good thing must eventually leave, you may keep your heart closed when real alignment appears. This next chapter demands that you believe differently about yourself. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not disqualified because of your mistakes. You are not unworthy because others failed to choose you. You are not difficult to love because the wrong people misunderstood your heart. Sometimes the deepest healing begins when you stop asking why others failed you, and start asking why you kept believing their failure defined your value. That realization changes everything. Because once you understand your worth was never determined by who stayed, who left, who noticed, who ignored, who applauded, or who rejected you, you begin moving through life differently. You stop begging for seats at tables where your presence is tolerated instead of cherished. You stop forcing conversations that feel one-sided. You stop shrinking to maintain fragile connections. You stop confusing being wanted temporarily with being valued deeply. And from that place, real transformation begins. There is a version of you emerging now that no longer negotiates with what steals peace. A version of you that recognizes red flags faster. A version of you that values alignment over attention. A version of you that chooses purpose over performance. A version of you that would rather stand alone in truth than be surrounded in pretense. That version of you is powerful. That version of you is necessary. Because the future ahead of you cannot be built by the person who kept doubting themselves every time life became uncertain. Listen carefully. What is coming next will require courage, not because it is dangerous, but because it will ask you to trust blessings you once thought were impossible. It will ask you to walk through doors your old self would have hesitated to enter. It will ask you to receive opportunities without questioning whether you deserve them. It will ask you to believe peace can be permanent, not temporary. It will ask you to stop expecting disaster every time life begins to feel good. For some, hardship becomes so familiar that peace feels suspicious. Chaos feels normal. Calm feels strange. Joy feels temporary. And stability feels almost unnatural. If that sounds familiar, then this message is for you. Because one of the greatest battles before breakthrough is learning not to sabotage peace simply because struggle is what you know best. Do not run from what is gentle because you are used to what is difficult. Do not distrust what is healthy because you survived what was unhealthy. Do not reject what is consistent because chaos once convinced you inconsistency was passion. What is meant for you may arrive quieter than your past. Healthier than your past. Softer than your past. More stable than your past. And if it does, do not confuse unfamiliar peace with lack of intensity. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not fireworks. It is calm. It is clarity. It is steadiness. It is finally no longer having to question where you stand. That kind of peace is rare. And it is approaching. But one final truth must be understood before this part ends. The life ahead of you will be shaped not only by what arrives, but by what you are willing to believe you deserve. If you still settle for crumbs, you will miss tables prepared for abundance. If you still cling to scarcity, you will fear receiving fullness. If you still identify with your wounds more than your healing, you will keep recreating pain in places meant for peace. So choose now, quietly, deeply, honestly, will you keep living as the person shaped only by what hurt you, or will you become the person transformed by what healed you? Because your answer to that question determines everything. And in the next part, you will understand why the people watching your life from a distance can sense your shift before you fully see it yourself.